pretty perfect weather this week out here for the WM Phoenix Open. You know, overall, we live in a pretty good state when it comes to playing golf, but there are some times when the weather doesn't cooperate, and that's when it's time to change up your game. When it comes to golf, Arizona has a lot more sunshine than rainy days or frost delays, but what happens when you've got a tee time and Mother Nature decides to join you? Here's how to adjust your game. We all love to have something to blame when it comes to our golf score. No, it was not good.
It's all right.
But can it really be Mother Nature's fault?
Arizona golf is actually easy.
Okay. Jack Berry spends his winter and spring teaching golf in Arizona and summers teaching in the Midwest, so he's seen it all.
When it gets over 90, the ball becomes a little more softer and pliable, so it actually travels farther.
Yes, the heat and the humidity, or lack of it here in the desert, can affect how far your ball travels, but not by much.
The humidity, it's supposed to affect it a little bit, and it's supposed to help a little bit. I've never really seen a big difference with the humidity.
Berry says your real worry is the wind.
There's hitting into the wind, and there's, of course, hitting downwind. We all love to hit downwind because it's helping the ball and it feels like we're loose and we can just swing and the ball goes forever. But again, if you're hitting into the green with a 7-iron without any wind and you have 10 miles an hour to 15 or even 20, that ball is going to fly over the green. So you have to learn to hit a shorter club like an 8 or 9.
The general rule is that your ball will travel more or less by 1 yard for every 1 mile per hour of wind.
So if you got 10, 15 mile an hour wind, it's 1 club less. And of course, if it's extreme, it might be 2 or even 3 clubs less. And the opposite is true, hitting into the wind. And then a lower one would be just a little bit lower in the ground.
Another tip, tee your ball up lower on a windy day.
And that ball's a little lower, and it'll stay straighter. Once it spins and it climbs into the wind, it'll just fall. It'll just drop. You'll lose 20, 30 yards. And that way you might lose 10 because of the wind, but at least you got a chance. A lot of times into the wind, it affects the golfers mentally because they want to swing harder and then they don't hit it solid and then it makes it worse.
Remind yourself when it's breezy, swing easy.
Perfect.
Berry says it's also a mental battle when it comes to rain, which probably affects you more than the ball.
When it starts to rain, people hurry up because they want to kind of get through it. But if you have 2 hours to play, you still got 2 hours to play.
Have a towel handy to dry off your grips, keep an eye on the radar, and just slow down. Okay, so you can adjust for heat, cold, humidity, and wind, but when it comes to monsoon storms, particularly lightning, it's time to just put down that metal club and go inside. April Warnicki for Arizona's Family. Yeah, they will not have to worry about any of that out here this week. A little bit of a breeze, but none of those strong winds. Jack's great. He's been coaching me with golf, and I know I'm not a great golfer. You can see that from that package. You couldn't see it, but just take my word on that, Gina. But he has some great tips. You know, he said, you know, wind is your biggest issue, but also another thing we didn't talk about, which isn't really weather related, but elevation. So that's, you know, going to make a difference. Really not much here in the valley, but if you travel, say, to California or maybe to Colorado, or, you know, places that the tour heads, it does make a difference, the elevation. Another thing, if it's really cold, that can kind of restrict your swing if you're wearing a lot of layers, and that's, as you mentioned, also going to impact the wardrobe decisions out here for the fans, which is going to make it a really interesting year for people watching.
So no Uggs this year, probably a lot more open-toed shoes, tank tops, and you know.
I told people to layer up, but I'm just worried about how many of the layers are going to come off.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, we know that the greens won't slow anybody down. Out here already, before the sun is coming up, we are seeing the groundskeepers out here making sure that the grounds are pristine.